Is your job search stuck? Maybe you're not getting any interviews with employers. Or maybe you are, but no job offers. Or you may be new and not even know where to start. This is Charles Max Wood, and I'm releasing a new course and ebook on how to find a job as a software developer. The course walks you through the process of finding the types of companies you want to work for, getting their attention, and putting your best foot forward as the candidate they want. I've coached dozens of developers in looking for jobs and have been able to help several people find jobs within 2 weeks to 2 months. So whether you're new to development, can't find a great job that fits what you want, or are looking for remote work from an area without a strong tech community, I can help. Go to getacoderjob.com and sign up today. Hi, this is Charles Max Wood, and I've been asked more times than I can count, how do I stay current? There's a lot to this question, and I'm working on a solution: code badges. That's right, you heard me right. Basically, the idea is that you come and do a code badge, and that gets you an introduction to a topic. Then you can decide if you want to pursue it further. But while working on the badge, you gain enough proficiency to be able to pick it up again if you need. A lot of technology comes through on the bleeding edge, and not all of it sticks, but the principles do. So doing badges on the technologies that will get you ahead will provide you with experience needed to stay competitive. Plus, it offers social proof that you know something about the topic. The project is on Kickstarter right now. You can support it and get on the launch list at codebadge.org. Hey everybody, and welcome to another My Angular story. This week we're going to be talking to Rodric Haddad. Rodric was on episode 30 of Adventures in Angular when we talked to the Angular interns. Rodric, do you want to kind of refresh our memory as to who you are and what you're up to these days?
All right, sure. Well, again, my name is Rodric. I used to be on the Angular team, initially as an intern, and then as a contractor. And I kind of moved from that now, but I still have ties to Angular, you could say. So currently, I'm the CTO of a startup in Lebanon called Coddict. We manage high-traffic websites like magazines and newspapers, but I'm still very much into Angular. I love it. I love the framework in Angular too. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Very
cool. Well, I sent you a series of questions that I'm going to ask, so sure. Let's just jump right in.
All right.
The first question I have is, how did you get into programming?
All right. I started when I was 14. My goals were to build a tool for a browser-based game I was playing. I had both my brother and my best friends who were into programming, and so they were helping me into that, to build tools for the game and share it with the community. And later on, my brother also opened up a web development agency, and I started working with him from my house, just helping him develop websites. And eventually I got into Angular because of that.
Cool. So what was it about Angular that got you excited?
Well, I was always the JavaScript fanatic. Like, I actually remember when I was still in high school, I read the ECMAScript 5 specification. Like, who does that? Exactly. Like, I have to admit, like, at that age, I didn't understand everything that was in it, but I'm like, wow, I still went through it. It's actually great learning resources if you want to learn the language. So yeah, another fun fact, I'm born in the same month that JavaScript got released in Netscape. So I feel an attachment to the language. So yeah, I was always the JavaScript guy, and Angular was going in popularity. And so I think I started in it when I was in 2011, 2012. And initially it was using it for my own projects, but also helping people on IRC. Just back in the days. And, they say an expert is somebody who has done all the mistakes that are possible. And so helping out people on IRC ended up, So helping out people on IRC ended up being a great way to learn Angular slowly. And so helping people there on Plunker and so on, and move to GitHub issues, then sending pull requests to the framework. And at some point I met the Angular team in the first NGConf in 2014. And they asked me if I wanted to join them as an intern. I was like, for sure, yeah. And so that's my story, my initial story with Angular, if you want.
So that's all it takes to become an intern on the Angular team, right? You go to NGConf, get to know them, and then get them to ask you to come join them?
Well, if your PRs are good and you seem like a good member of the team and a good member of the community, I'm sure if they're looking for interns, they're more than happy to have more good people on board.
I am curious, though, what's the difference between an intern and somebody who's a full-time engineer at Google?
Well, initially an intern comes for a few months. In my case, after the internship, I ended up going as a contractor back when I was in Montreal at that time, and the team was in California. So I did continue doing some remote work. Well, a full-timer is, at the end, Angular is a team inside of Google. And so a full-timer would be a full-time Googler, while an intern will be a part-time Googler, if you want. Like he's just there for a summer. I imagine employees go through a tougher interview process.
That's probably true.
But when it comes to responsibilities, at least I know from my experience on the Angular team, even though I was an intern, I still have I had a very good knowledge of Angular 1 at the time. And so I felt like I had similar responsibilities to other team members, at least working on the core. So it's more about your knowledge than your employment status, if you want, I think.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think we dug into a lot of this on the episode. I am curious, though. Do you have any stories or sort of, experiences that you went through, either as an intern or as you were leading up to or coming off of being an intern, that you want to share with us? Just kind of some inside view into what it's like to be on the Angular core team.
Okay, interesting. Now, my knowledge might be out of date because I was with them in 2014, 2015. At least some funny stories. I've mentioned this kind of in my talk. I did a talk called Angular Behind the Scenes at ngConf, but it's still fun for us to discuss it, I guess. It was once when I was releasing a new version. So basically what happened is at the end of a meeting of a team meeting, they usually decided who would release the next version. And so it was decided that it was me. So it was a very new experience. And so I released a new version and had a bug that brought down a lot of tests inside of Google, which is really fun. Yes, exactly. And so it was like a name collision was a library that that many of Google's Angular application used internally, and so we figured out it's a naming collision, and we ended up needing to make a property be unique, and to do that I added my favorite number to it, and so now if you look at any element in Angular 1, you find that there's a property called ng339. And 339 happens to be my favorite number.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So you have your own little piece of Angular. Nice.
So yeah, but obviously that's not the only stuff I've worked on while on Angular. I was actually looking through my commits on the core team. I helped do stuff in the one-time bindings and the interpolation speed and some security stuff. So, yeah, those were all through my internship. So, for the most part. And after the internship, I was given the task of starting Angular CLI. I didn't get too much into it, so I don't want to take credits for it. But I was a contributor on it as well.
Very cool. So, you knew, unlike most people when they go take a job, you knew how long you were going to be there.
Yeah. Go
ahead.
Well, I initially knew the internship length.
Right.
And after it seems we made the deal where I was working remotely. You can say that when I got in, I knew how much time I was going to stay.
So what does that change the relationship at all? Knowing, hey, in 3 months, Rodric's not going to be around anymore.
Interesting. If anything, it changes that I was my supervisor was Igor. And so most of the things I would do went through Igor. And unlike being maybe an independent team member, like you have a big project like the router or something. So there was that, but like before going into Google, I was already a contributor. So just, if anything, while on campus, my contributions went up, but I was a contributor before, and I still stayed a contributor after. It's just the time available for me to work on Angular that changed. So I guess I'm a pretty special case because of that. I think some of my first contributions were in 2014, even though I joined in 2015.
That's interesting to me, just from the standpoint of, I think most of the time when you think about interns, they're people who have just graduated from college and they're looking for a place to go to get some experience. And it sounds like for you, you were contributing to Angular, and then they decided, hey, well, let's get your effort full time for a few months, and then you can go on and do other things.
Yes, exactly. And actually, I remember back at the time, looking around in the team, there was a lot of people who started as contributors and just ended up joining because they were good contributors. In my case, because I was still in college, they could fit me through the internship stuff of Google. And so actually, I'm looking now at my commits. My first merge request was in 2013. So I started in 2013, and 2 years after I met the team, a year and a half after I met the team and joined joined them officially. So yeah, as I was saying, most people will on the team will contribute to a piece of Angular because it's open source and you can do whatever you want and suggest whatever you want, which is awesome. And so most people would come as contributors, and then they will join full time when they're like, hey, dude, you're doing amazing work. Do you want to get paid for it? That's pretty much it. I know there were a few contributors as well who worked for other companies that the companies would sponsor them to work on Angular, which was great to see. But otherwise, if you're doing great work on Angular itself, or maybe have great ideas for the framework, I don't see why they wouldn't come out and ask you if you want to join.
That makes sense. So essentially, if you're a college student and you start contributing to Angular, you have some reasonable chance of becoming an intern at Google.
Yeah, for sure. Well, obviously, you still need other stuff. Like if you're contributing, docs to you still need you can't just contribute to docs, for example, and just I'll be an intern, because I don't think that fits through Google stuff. Maybe it will fit through Angular stuff, but because the team is part of the Google organization, there's still the other Google interviews and so on. But yes, you have the right idea. If you're a college student and you're contributing to Angular and you're passionate about it and you're doing good work, the chances of you joining the team would go up for sure.
So then what do? You go to ngconf and you ambush Jules or Brad or somebody?
In my case, there were two things that got me to talk to the teams. I was so shy, initially. I had the merge request to which Igor did not want to merge. And so I was like, hey, dude, can we reevaluate this? Because I think it's a good idea. So that happened at once. So we sat together and talked. And there was another time in the same conference where back in the days for the dependency injection, Vojta had this idea for annotations. And I had this library to have JavaScript annotations without the compiler, which is very hacky. You shouldn't do it. And I don't want to advertise it because anyway, but it got Vojta's attention. So, and Mishka as well. So then I was presenting something new, and I was sitting down with Igor to ask him for further information on the pull request. And so both of them, I guess, made me stand out at that time. And so that's why they gave me an offer.
That makes sense.
But I honestly did not come with the idea if I want to join the team. For me, it was a very big surprise. I came because I want to make this better. That's a much better mentality, I believe.
Well, and I think it's interesting here, just if there's a lesson to be learned, I guess, is that if you're out there and you're doing great stuff for a community, say Angular or somebody else, this is going to go out for Adventures in Angular, so most of the people listening are probably doing Angular.
Awesome.
But yeah, if you're out there and you want to make contributions, sometimes those contributions will get noticed and you will get an offer like this. I think most people think about an internship as something you go out and actually apply to. And in this case, it sounds like you had their attention. They knew who you were and what some of your contributions were. And so they just said, hey, do you want to be an intern? And that worked out.
Yes, exactly. And so having a good GitHub profile where you put the stuff you enjoy working on is a great way also to get attention. And it was my case back at the time.
So what makes up a good GitHub profile? Just lots of contributions, a picture of your pretty face? I mean, what is it?
Well, to be honest, now I don't have a very good GitHub profile because my contributions to GitHub went down after joining Coddict and the startup scene and so on. Interesting. What makes a good GitHub profile? For sure, a lot of activity. Like that's the first thing somebody would see. But also the things you've contributed to and the for example, the things you forked and changed in them. And for example, like when I'm looking at a new GitHub profile, I also look at their own repositories, not just the stuff they forked, to see what type of things they work on. Mm-hmm. And so then you have a sense of the person, of the code of the person, and you can see their code style, what type of stuff they care about. Like if you're somebody that like writes code and writes tests, and the tests are good for them, like, hey, dude, like let's have a coffee. Like, it shows a certain level of quality in the code. And then if the person's good and the code quality is good, then you should probably want to have them on your team. Sorry.
And that helps with a lot of other things too. I mean, in your case, it helped you get an internship with Google, but in a lot of other cases, it may help you get the job that you want, or get an internship somewhere else, or get noticed by a related project or something like that. And so we're not just talking about if you want to get into Google, here's what you do. We're talking about if you want to get noticed and get this type of opportunity somewhere else, it also helps there.
Sure. And also contributing to open source, or at least pushing your code into the open source world, at least in my case, pushes me to actually do the right things in my code. So then, like, I'm not going to do the thing in a hacky way because so on and so forth. I'll write my commit messages right and so on, because I see the value of it, because I see that, hey, if I'm writing something that's useful for me and will probably be useful for somebody else, it might be worth it to see how I can do a change log. Right? It might be useful for me to see how I can set up my tests. And it's actually great to see the tools around the open source community that offer their services for free, like Travis. If you're an open source project, they'd give you Travis for free. And because obviously it's like marketing for them, but it's also great for you. And there's joining now Coddict, the startup. I've been with them for about a year and a half now, and there's all these tools that I want to use, and I see they always have this open source option. I'm like, yeah, we should open source more stuff so that we can benefit from them.
All right, so tell me what you are working on now. So what is Codec? Is it Codec? Coddict,
like addict.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, so what are you doing there?
So the company itself manages high traffic websites like magazines and newspapers.
Oh, right.
Mostly in the Middle East. That's our market. So we're based in Lebanon, and so most of our clients are in Dubai, though. It's a business to business type of shop. So basically, in a nutshell, we remove the risk for our clients when it comes to high traffic websites. So then they can focus on sales. We have a technical department. I'm the CTO, so I'm heading that department. We also have a marketing department and an editorial department that helps our clients, which are high traffic websites. And it's a lot of interesting challenges because you have like millions of visitors hitting all of your pages on your websites, and then you need to cater for them, keep this site speed up, make the marketing department happy with all their requirements, and so on and so forth. My goal in the company is to build the technical department again. And so I'm using all of my knowledge, be it from the quality that comes from open source and working at Google, to try to build a good place to work, as well as a place where the quality of our products are high.
So what initiatives are you actually enacting then at Coddict, and specifically in what ways were they informed by being part of the Angular team? I'm really curious to see, just what you're doing now, with specific practices and how that came out of your time at Google.
I see. If anything, Angular made me realize how there's certain small things in a project are very important. Like I just mentioned the change logs, like they're actually very important to keep things reliable. Same thing with tests. Same thing with keeping all of the code looking the same. So pushing a style checker and making sure it's always passing. What else? More on a human level, it helps in my experience at Google, for example, with one-on-ones with Igor. And so I want to have the same thing in the company here, where we sit down and have a safe environment for every employee to be able to talk with their manager or supervisor and see how everything's going on, what they'd like to change. And it's quite interesting because these stuff usually did not exist in the Lebanese business mindset. And we're kind of introducing them. And it's great to see the employees being happy with these stuff in place. Are you looking for something else?
No, that was actually perfect. I'm really curious, though. You mentioned that this isn't something that's common in the Lebanese marketplace, but do you find that it's having an impact beyond your company then, or is it too early to tell since you've only been there for a little while?
Yeah, it's definitely too early to tell, I would say, but at least I know, like, usually, like in Lebanon, there's not a lot of employment laws, or at least they're not enforced.
Uh-huh.
But like we want to have all of them. We want to protect our employees. We want to give them a safe environment to work. We want beanbags everywhere. We even have a puppy at the office. Our marketing manager asked us if he can bring his puppy, which is now like 9 months old. So he and then we said yes. So now we have a puppy at the office.
I am totally revising my image of what it's like in Mountain View working on the Angular team based on what you're saying.
Wait, what do you mean?
You said beanbags everywhere and a puppy. So is there NG puppy or NG beanbags or?
Well, Google lets you bring your dog to the company if he's like a friendly dog.
Uh-huh.
It's actually quite crazy. I remember in the kitchens there was these gum dispensers, and usually gum is toxic to dogs in case they fall on the floor. And if I remember correctly, somebody at Google partnered up with the gum manufacturer to produce gum that is non-toxic to dogs.
That's hilarious.
So we're like in Coddict, we're not at the stage yet, but like it's at least we have a puppy. But that was the kind of stuff you'd find at Google. And yes, there were a lot of beanbags. And I remember they were huge beanbags. Like they could fit 2, maybe 3 people on them. And looking around in the country here, I couldn't find any. So we ended up making our own custom beanbags.
Oh, nice.
Just to have them be relaxing. Mm-hmm.
You should spin off a company that just does that.
Yeah. Well, first let's change the business mindset in the country to want beanbags, and then the need will be there, the demand will be there, and then we'll provide.
Oh, I see. You create the market and then create the product. I like that.
Yeah. Actually, I'm here just for this, for the beanbags.
Nice.
So yeah, it's quite an interesting job as well because it's pretty much one of my first time into management. Mm-hmm. Initially, I was fighting it a lot, but now I see my role in it more of empowering other people to do their work successfully. So I went through that stage, I guess, where everybody moving from development to management, where I wish I was coding all day, but so far I'm good, back to normal.
Yeah, I sometimes get to that point where I'm like, man, I wish I could just sit down and write code, because I do a lot of work just managing podcast website, making sure that people are showing up when they need to for these kinds of interviews, or making sure that the guests or the hosts have what they need, or trying to do marketing for the online conferences and things like that. And sometimes I think I'm, it'd just be nice to just sit and write code all day, you know, because the stakes are just a little lower, right? It just has to work, right? The user has to be happy, you know. It's not, are the employees happy, or are the customers happy, or, you know, are we making enough money to pay the bills?
Exactly. If it helps, you're doing a great job with the podcast and the conference and so on. Like, high five over the mic.
I appreciate that. So anything else that you're working on besides Coddict? Any open source projects or anything else you want to talk about?
Currently not at the moment, sadly. Like, I would want to change that, though I'm not sure, like, you know, starting the company and so on, you'd end up not having a lot of time. Also changing countries. Like, I used to live in Montreal. Now I'm in Lebanon, which was an interesting move. No open source stuff, but I do know, like, we want to launch our own blog where we can share all the knowledge we have in the company as well. Be able to put, like, we got to a level where we have certain standards in the company, and I'd love to have that in, like, a blog format, like yet another blog. Mm-hmm. And if for sure, if there's places where we can open source stuff in the company, I would push the people with me to go ahead and open source it, because it just benefits everyone. But so far we've been doing, like, very sensitive tools, if you want, to make our jobs better for our websites. So none of them are open sourceable. But at some point, like, if we're building libraries, I would push for that. But yeah, no personal open source work so far. It doesn't make sense when you're, like, part of a startup to say, I'm going to spend half of my day responding to GitHub issues. Right. Instead of, like, doing this critical thing that if we don't do, we lose something big.
Yeah, that makes sense. So for people here in the US, because I know that most of the audience, probably about half, maybe a little bit more, are in the United States, you know, and then probably a good chunk of the rest are in Canada or Europe. So I'm curious, since you said that your market is primarily in the Middle East, is Coddict something that people are still going to want to go check out?
Interesting. If anything, you can check out our Facebook page, which has a lot of funny stuff. We have a interesting culture at the company, so you can check that out on our Facebook page. At the current moment, there's no resources that would be useful for the outside world, unless you want to invest in high traffic websites in the Middle East. Then you can contact us for sure. Otherwise, there's nothing specific I can link to that would benefit everybody, maybe the audience of the podcast.
And for the people that are in the Middle East, so...
if you're ever... Oh, sorry.
Are there specific markets or countries that you serve, or just any country in the Middle East?
It's usually any country in the Middle East, but often you find that everybody's based in Dubai.
Okay.
Because it's just mostly stable, and that's where most of the money is. And also, I believe they don't have any taxes, which is quite interesting.
Nice.
But
how do they find you?
So currently we're growing via our clients knowing clients. It's quite a niche market where, again, we're just managing magazines and newspapers that are high traffic. So far, we don't have any investors. We are all funded by our projects. Which for a startup is you don't find that often. And so, sorry, I'm having a blank. I imagine you added this. Sorry. Yes.
I guess what I'm really asking is, let's say that we have listeners in Dubai, and I'm sure we have some. Mm-hmm. How do they get a hold of you if they want your help?
Oh, well, contact@coddict.com, or you can.
That sounds pretty straightforward.
Yeah. Or you can. We can talk to us on our website is currently in development. So I was going to say, like, go to our contact us, but maybe by the time you listen to this podcast, you'd have a nice contact us form on our website. Otherwise contact at Coddict.com. You'd get to us, or our Facebook page if you want. So yeah, if you're interested in starting a high traffic website, where you probably would want some marketing for it, some technical support, or even if not, some website development for it, and some editorial advice, then you can check out Coddict, and we'll give you like a complete solution for this. But it's actually quite interesting because the company grew organically. And currently, we're at a point where an investor can come in and just say, I want a lifestyle magazine, and we'll do the study and we'll do everything, and we can get it to a point where it's monetizable, where the person just has to either turn around and do some advertisement sales, for example, on the website, or if the website is special interest, like he can make money out of that, or he can go for programmatic ads and make money off of that too. So we offer all of the services, being website development, getting it online, keeping it online, as well as the marketing, the ad operations, and the trafficking to get people to the website, the social media, as well as the editorial. We grew to currently 17 people in a year and a half. And so it's quite interesting.
All right. Well, the last thing that we do on the show is picks. You've been on the show before. You kind of know the drill. Do you have some things you want to shout out about?
Can it be like more ideas than products?
Oh, absolutely. Anything you want.
Awesome. Well, I wanted to just bring back the value of when you're in a situation where you're working with somebody else's library. Don't hesitate to jump into that person's code. You end up learning so much from it. Like I know I've learned a lot from reading Angular's code base at the beginning. I've read Backbones back at the time. I've jumped into jQuery. I've jumped into Symfony on the PHP side. And so reading somebody else's code makes you understand it better, but also gives you ideas on how to make your code better. And another thing I wanted to shout out is that when you're joining somewhere new to work, like when you're joining a new company to work at, I believe what matters the most are the people that will be around you. You'll see these people every day and you interact with them. So hopefully they'll be the kind of people that will empower you to grow, and it'll be pleasant to be around. I feel like I had that on the Angular team, where it was always fun to be around the Angular team. And I also have that at Coddict now, where I enjoy being with the people that work there. And also from the other side, you can try to be that person who other people enjoy working with, because it just makes everything better.
All right. Well, I'm going to jump in here with a couple of picks.
All right.
The first one is over the break, the holiday break here for Christmas and New Year's. I was hanging out with my brother-in-law and sister-in-law, and they're really into this game called Game of War.
All right.
It's on the iPhone and Android, and yeah, I've been playing it probably way too much. And I don't know why I've been spending so much time on it, but I have. So I guess it's a guilty pleasure, but yeah, really enjoying that. Another thing that I'm going to pick, and this is something that I read it last year, and I'm getting ready to implement my second round of this. It's called The 12-Week Year. It's a book, and it basically outlines how to plan your year, but then what they do is they tell you to shrink your year from 52 weeks to 12 weeks. And so you essentially get 4 12-week years in a full year. And the reason that they do this is, with the argument anyway, is that most people, they set their goals for the year, and then in January they're like, well, we still have 11 months, whatever, March, we still have 9 months. By the time June rolls around, it's like, oh, maybe we should really get serious about some of these goals for the year. And, so by the time you get to October, it's like, okay, now we got to really just get everything in gear and get things done over the next 3 months. And so their argument is, well, why not just set those goals for 3 months and then do it again for the next 3 months? And that made a lot of sense to me. And then their whole process for where do you want to wind up? What are you working toward? What are you trying to do? And these are longer term, like 3 to 5 years. And then breaking that down into, okay, so what do I have to do over the next 3 months? That's a time horizon that I can really think about. A year is a little bit long for me to be able to say, okay, well, I'm going to do all of these things over the next year, and I'm going to be closer to where I want. If I work for 90 days or 12 weeks, and then I realize, you know what, I need to tweak where I'm trying to get to, then I can do that. I can adjust course a little bit and then make the next 12 weeks that much better. or if I get extra stuff done, or I realize that something's more work or something like that, again, it gives me enough time to adjust. So it's kind of like Agile, but for your life. And so I really, really love the book. And so I'm going to pick it on here as well.
So what's the name of the book again?
It's called The 12-Week Year.
Do you know who is it from?
I will have to look that up. But yeah. Okay.
Actually, I have a pick just came up for something that might help with that. It's called OmniFocus. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
Yes, OmniFocus is terrific. I've also been using Asana.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. For your personal stuff?
For my personal stuff, I'm still working on that. I've used OmniFocus in the past. I've used a lot of different things in the past, to be perfectly honest. Somebody in one of the groups that I talk to every week, the 12-Week Year is by Brian P. Moran and Michael Lennington.
Right.
But the
OmniFocus.
Yeah, OmniFocus. So one of the guys that is in one of the groups that I talk to every week, I'm in a couple of masterminds. He put together a spreadsheet for the 12-Week Year, and so for those things, I manage a lot of my personal tasks, like the things that I need to get done that week, or the things that I need to get done on a regular basis, like every day, that are part of that 12-Week Year. I put those in there, and then the more personal tasks, they're usually managed for the business, so I just put them in Asana, or I have other lists that I've just created in Asana, and I just put them in there. And that way all of my stuff is in one place. I was using Basecamp before, but Basecamp turned out to really not be what I needed. And I'm really liking Asana for this, so I can just create private lists and get that done. I just track most of it in Asana. But yeah, those things that are specifically part of my goals for the 12-Week Year, they go into that spreadsheet, and then I mark them off, because part of 12-Week Year is tracking what you got done and essentially scoring your week. And so you get an 80% if you got 80% of your tasks done that get you toward that goal. And so then you can, you also set up accountability groups, and you have a weekly accountability meeting where you get in and you talk about, okay, I got 89% this week, and this is what I'm doing next week. Or if somebody got like 50 or 60% in your accountability meeting, then you can really quickly, dig into why and try and help each other out. So,
yeah, well, that's amazing. If you have that support system around you,
yep,
that's just great.
Yeah, it's terrific. So yeah.
There's actually one thing you said made me remember something I found exciting today, which is Google Scripts. I don't know if you've ever played with those.
No, what is this? It sounds Google like magic.
So it is actually Google Scripts. So you can do them in the Google developer stuff. Actually, it's more easy to get to them. For example, if you're in a Google document, you click on tools and then you do like new Google Script. It allows you to have access to all of the APIs of Google using just simple JavaScript objects. As in, you can just do like in Google Script, which is a subset of JavaScript, you can just do Gmail app dot send email, and it sends an email. Or you can do a spreadsheet app dot select this column to this column. Or you can, let's say you're pulling data from any service at Google, like for example, analytics, you can do analytics dot get all the sessions from this date to this date. And so it's an amazing language to help you integrate all of the Google services together. And if you want to automate stuff that are from Google, you can even do AJAX calls too outside of the domain of Google. So it's quite interesting. If you want to automate stuff like this, I would advise people to check it out.
Very nice. I'm very into automation, so I'm going to have to go check it out.
Awesome.
All right. Well, if people want to follow you on Twitter or kind of keep track of what you're doing these days, what's the best place to do that?
Twitter would be roddyhaddad.com, so RODYHADDAD. Though I don't tweet a lot, though I do actually tweet stuff that I find very useful. Otherwise, Yeah, that's a good way to get in touch. I was going to suggest Facebook because I'm more active there. You mentioned magic. I'm also a magician, like a closet magician.
Nice.
So sometimes you'll find things there related to that.
Is there a good way to find you on Facebook or to like Coddict over there so that you can see what's going on with that?
Yeah, sure. You can like Coddict, Coddict, or just message me or follow me or add me on Facebook. So Rodric Haddad, you can search that, or Twitter. I guess you can find me all three.
All right, sounds great. Well, thank you for coming. We're going to go ahead and wrap this up, and you'll get another Angular story next week.
Awesome. Have a good day, everybody.
Bandwidth for this segment is provided by CacheFly, the world's fastest CDN. Deliver your content fast with CacheFly. Visit CACHEFLY.com to learn more.